Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Friday, the 20th of September, comes to you from London. The dollar sinking a little bit lower, taking the Federal Reserve rate cut on Wednesday a bit more under into its stride, and we're seeing just short-term bearish there. We've got a couple of downside targets, but the trend is still up on the point and figure charts. And the medium and long-term trends, of course, are still bullish. The Euro-dollar, we're seeing the move here is we're slightly in bullish territory this morning, but of course the medium and long-term charts are still bearish against the dollar. Dollar against the yen is also just turning bearish, so we're bearish on all three time frames there, the yen being the strong currency. Sterling rising further this morning, hopes of a Brexit deal increasing, and so we're seeing a move in the currency as a result, and against the euro we're seeing sterling climbing as well. Is looking quite strong there now, and against the Swiss franc also looking higher there. Against the Aussie dollar, also seeing sterling rise there as well. Bitcoin back above $10,000, but really still looking a little bit bearish to the downside there. US stock markets edging higher last night. We're seeing the S&P 500 index above that 3,000 level, so just looking better all the time there, but little changed overnight, and the same with the Nasdaq, just holding steady. The Dow Jones was down slightly, again just not managed to break to these new highs. It looks like we'll have to wait another week for that to happen, and the same with the Russell 2000 index, just giving up a little bit of the gains that we've seen in recent days. But the breadth of the Russell is encouraging for the market, the fact that we are seeing markets rising higher. The S&P future is up slightly this morning, and the Nasdaq Mini just up under 0.2%. So it does suggest the US market will open slightly higher based on the futures, but flat really is what we'd say based on such a small change at this stage of the day. The UK market, the FTSE 100 down 0.2% this morning. Sterling higher, not helping there, of course. 70% of UK blue chip companies have their earnings in foreign currencies, which means when sterling's stronger, those foreign currency earnings relate to less in sterling. So we see a relationship with sterling rising and the FTSE falling. The midcaps are up this morning. They're up by 0.4%, continuing to look strong, and we are just wandering out of the trend there, so looking better there all the time on the long term. The DAX is also slightly down this morning, but holding on to its bullishness, and the CAC 40 down very slightly. So market's pretty subdued generally. Japan was little changed overnight, and the Hang Seng was also little changed. China was up 0.2%, but the big move overnight was in the Sensex. We saw a very big move there, and so the Indian market really just moving much, much higher, which is first time in a while we've seen that, but a massive rise there. The Aussie market up slightly, and Brent crude also just holding back into those mid-60s, sitting at 64.60 this morning. Not enough to really put us back into that medium-term bullish zone, but at the moment we're just holding steady there. WTI also up this morning, but still sitting below the cloud on the short-term chart. US NatGas has come back in recent days. We're sitting at $2.55, fell on Thursday on storage numbers, and we're just seeing that translating into the price. But at the moment, the medium-term trend is still pretty good there for NatGas. Gold is back above the $1,500 mark, so that's better for the yellow metal, but really just above the cloud, so we're short-term bullish. Gold is still looking really good on the long-term charts, of course, and silver similarly up and just breaking into bullish territory just here on the cloud. US 10-year yields, we've seen here recently they've recovered quite sharply, but they're just, since the rate cut by the Fed, we are just seeing yields just wandering a little bit south, so we are short-term bearish on 10-year yields. And if we look at German bond prices, they've been steadily rising in response to that weakening yield. Taking a look now at just at the stocks quickly here, we look at the Dow Jones Index. The best performer last night was Microsoft. Microsoft is sitting at $141, have outperformed the Dow Jones this year by about 20%. I'm just seeing Microsoft breaking again. Looks like having been flat for several weeks. Looks like Microsoft are on the verge of breaking again to new highs, so looking pretty good there. The worst performer was Walt Disney. They were down 2.5% in the Dow, so that is having a little bit of an impact and looking quite toppy there, and just starting to wander into bearish territory on the medium-term Ichimoku chart. Taking a quick look at the Nasdaq, we've got Alexon Pharmaceuticals. They're up quite strongly. Microsoft was the fourth best performer we just talked about. Tesla sitting there at 246. They've been in the doldrums already, but actually looking like they might just be starting to wander out. On the relative, we've underperformed the market by 30% this year, but we are just starting to see a turnaround there. Facebook was also up quite sharply yesterday, and they're just holding on to their bull trend and still outperforming the market by 20% this year. So despite all the negative publicity you might see around these stocks, it's the performance that really counts. Netflix were down by 1.7%. Their woes continue, and the long-term trend turning bearish there, so not a good looking chart now. Quick look at the Aussie market. The best performer was Premier Investments. They were up 15%, really jumped yesterday. That's put them into bullish territory on the medium-term chart. And if we look at the downside, we've got 7 West Media down a further 8%. They fell heavily yesterday and again overnight, so we're seeing quite a move there. We saw in the Indian market big rises there. A number of stocks here up significantly, 15, 14, 13% rises. So a really huge jump there for a lot of these Indian stocks, and they needed it because quite a lot of these stocks had been selling off and looking quite worrying. Only 6 stocks down yesterday. Z Entertainments were down 2.6%, but overall the market really did jump in India. If we take a look at the UK market now, best performer in the FTSE 100, Kingfisher this morning. Here we see the live pricing coming in from Yahoo Finance. Not a great looking chart though. Persimmon also up 4% this morning. So that's looking pretty good. The chart again a little bit subdued, but starting to come into bullish territory there on the medium-term chart. If we look at the downside, we've got Rolls-Royce down 3.5%. They've continued to really, ever since that profit warning, they've just really struggled and underperforming the market by 20% this year. Taking a quick look at the FTSE 100 now, we see here we've got Metro Bank leading up 7%. Not enough to really change this chart, dire chart there, and CYBG also another poor performer of late, rising quite strongly this morning. On the downside, we've got Investec Group. They're down 5.9%. Saga down 4.45%. The chart nothing great there either. Woodford continuing to be in the laggards there as well. Last of all, a quick look at the European markets. We see here Amadeus IT. They're looking quite strong, holding on to the long-term trend on the bullish on the weekly chart. The daily chart not looking as good, and we're seeing the relative just breaking down there as well. And if we look at the downside, the worst performer this morning is Airbus, down 2.7%, but again the chart actually looking pretty good. That's it for today. Until Monday, have a great weekend. Happy charting. See you then.